Hi, and welcome to All the Woo A to Z. We're your hosts, Suzanne.
And Mychal, and this is season 2.
Hi, I'm Suzanne, and I have spent the last week preparing to recondition my mind with the Kabbalistic power of Pisces.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a small little thing. I'm Mychal, and I am just trying to organize my home space basically this week. So,
Spring cleaning.
yes. Really. Yeah, it really is.
And we are here with F for.
Fortune telling. That's it.
I was about to put the F on my forehead,
Yes. No, I understood the letter. I forgot what we were. Anyway, this is also All the Woo, A to Z. And we ask you to join us at our table, our non judgmental space where we share our own experiences and understandings on these topics in the hopes, at the very least, that you are entertained.
And so, what do we got in our glasses?
All right. So this one was a little bit more difficult to pair.
You needed a crystal ball?
No. Not exactly, although my mind kind of went, I'm like, we could go a lot of different places, but all of the pairings were honestly fairly weak,
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing, we're doing a cocktail. We're doing
Mm-hmm.
a dark and stormy cocktail. So if you don't know what that is typically dark rum with ginger beer and some lime juice with ice. And so,
A drink Jack Sparrow would have liked.
yes. So the reason why we're having this,
See?
yeah,
Hear that fancy ice cube?
it's indeed very fancy. One of the reasons why we're having this, though, is because in a lot of Caribbean cultures, specifically Haitian, voodoo practices, just a lot of that kind of
West African sort of rooted.
correct. There are spiritual practices, even sometimes having to do with divination, that by the practitioners, alcohol can be consumed during the process, either sometimes for ceremonies and or sometimes to, get you in the mood for doing divination or things like that. Depends on the style and the type and
Mm-hmm.
where you are and all that. And typically the kind of alcohol that is used for this is going to be like rum, like a cane sugar based spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So hence that's why we're doing a dark and stormy, and also kind of dark and stormy, having to see through the clouds in order to gain information there. So there we are. That is the pairing.
All right. So fortune telling, what is fortune telling? I think we've all seen movies, read books, etc., where you have someone trying to figure out, are you going to go on a journey? Are you going to meet a tall, dark stranger? All of
When
those
am I going to
kinds of
die?
tropes
Yeah.
that are figured out by looking into a crystal ball,
Mhm.
or, even the Wizard of Oz, that is part of it.
Yep.
Or reading the cards or whatever. And because Mychal mostly, but also I have done a lot of these tools.
We've done the legwork on this.
We have done the research for you.
Yes.
So I'm going to say I have been to one psychic,
Mm-hmm.
and he gave me COVID.
Yeah. So he was your favorite out of all of them.
And I don't know, because so Mychal and I went together
Mhm.
to this psychic store that was by a
It was
pancake place.
Yeah, it was literally one of those places where it's like there's a little sign outside that says it's like,
$10 psychic.
I always wonder with these places that I'm like, I've never seen anybody go in or out of this building. I'm like, is it a front is it like a money laundering kind of business? Like what?
So
Yeah.
one day, I think after COVID was kind of over, we were having pancake brunch at the place next door.
Mhm.
And we were both talking about how we were just so curious because we drove by this place all the time. We'd never
Yes.
seen cars or whatever.
It's kind of by where we live. So yeah.
And so we determined that this was the day we were going to go.
Like, we're just going to figure this out. We're going to go see, we're going to take them up on their $10 reading offer and
And
see if
gentle
it's
listener,
real.
don't be surprised. It was not
It was
$10. It
not.
was like
Yeah.
150, I think.
Yeah, very different amount. But I also figured that that would be the case. I was prepared for that event.
I was not prepared. I had $10.
I'm sorry.
No, I think you ended up paying
Yeah,
for
I
it.
think I did.
Anyway, so he told me several things that I have yet to see if they come true.
Mhm.
But yes, that couple was from, I don't know, Russia, somewhere in Eastern
Eastern
Europe.
Europe, yeah.
Um, and it was a very, and they were, wherever we were was like a house, except it was decorated in a way that I've never seen a US house decorated.
Mhm.
And so with this elaborate furniture and this elaborate setup, and in the middle of it all was, what was it, a Barbie townhouse or something
Yeah, some kind of large play
thing.
building.
And they were very, very extremely well dressed.
Oh, I think they were coming from church.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And yes, and it was like you get to ask 3 questions, and
Mhm.
I don't remember what my questions were. Probably one about my health,
Mhm.
one about where I would live,
Mhm.
and I should have asked, "Am I gonna get COVID?" So
That would have
anyway,
been, I think, lumped in the health.
fair point.
Yeah.
So we're sitting on this massive couch, and he is giving me, I think I asked, like, "Where are y'all from? How long have you been doing this?"
Mhm.
Those kind of reportery questions that
Yeah.
come to me naturally. And so there was about a 15-minute sort of outlay of their credentials
Mhm.
and how they have people from all over the world and celebrities who fly them out to get readings.
Yeah, I find okay. Yeah,
And yeah, and then he answered my questions maybe.
sorta. I had my reading from the wife of the
Mhm.
couple. We went into a different room.
Yes.
I had a not a large couch. I had a little tiny chair that I sat in across from her. Yes, same thing. The questions. It was interesting. Some of the things that she said, yeah, haven't really come to fruition.
Mhm.
Uh,
Maybe they were more long distance psychics.
sure, yeah, I'm willing to keep an open mind
Mhm.
about it, but the because I did ask about, all the typical when
Mm.
I am that person where I'm like, "Yeah, you tell me about my love life. Yeah, tell me about my job. Tell me about all the things that everybody always wants to know. Tell me about it."
Mhm.
But one thing that she did say that I've had a couple of other people say, so this is, as I say, I crowdsource a lot of my information. This would be one that fell into the crowdsource, you know,
Sourcing.
sourcing check
Mhm.
portion of like, yeah, this was also said by this person. And because she was saying that I would somehow work with children.
Oh, right.
And I've had other people say the same. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I have no desire, plan, or knowing of how that would work itself out.
We
I
have
don't
2
know.
eclipses this month, so who
I
knows?
mean, I'm not shutting it down.
Yeah.
I'm not shutting it down. I don't know on my current trajectory
Mhm.
with my career in life. I'm not sure how that would
Yeah, wine and kids is probably not
typically not together on average. Yeah. Alcohol and children typically are not. You don't see that as a combo, or at least one that's sanctioned by the government in any way.
or really any responsible adult.
Yes.
So another reading person who Michael and I both experienced was recently in New Orleans.
Hmm.
We went to she was a Creole gypsy, she said.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, the shop itself, like a lot of the shops there in New Orleans, are have a voodoo base to them. This was slightly a little bit more commercialized
Mhm.
than the other shop that I've talked about that I like to go to there. But yes, so she had her little room off to the side. Hers was a combination of tarot cards and psychic intuition,
Mhm.
both together.
And for me, she dropped some bombs that I, possibly because I wasn't expecting them,
Mhm.
and again, things to just consider. And part of me, again, the journalist is always sort of like, I believe you, but
Yeah.
what tells are you looking at? What, and when I sit down, pray, can I open up and receive what I need to or
Mhm.
what's here for me
Mhm.
and leave the rest.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was a little shook after that.
Yeah. I don't know that
Um,
you've told me a lot of the things in that reading.
no,
Okay.
and I'm certainly not going to say it on the
Yeah, I'm
podcast.
not expecting you to share them here.
But
Yeah.
yeah, keep tending your tomatoes.
Yes.
So, and how about you? What was your experience with her?
Um, so keep in mind, I think it was earlier that day.
Like right before you had already
Yeah.
gone to the voodoo guy who told you.
Yeah. In another shop that was a like traditional voodoo shop that's there. And the way that I was introduced to the shop originally in one of my previous visits was this is the place where people who are practitioners go to get their supplies. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, that's where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they
Take
do,
me to the store that sells chickens.
yes, right? Like for real, that's who I want to get my reading from. And so I actually, this was my second time getting a reading from this person there. The
Mm-hmm.
time before, and they don't traditionally, I don't think that they let you choose, or at least whenever, both times I've gone, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't had a choice of my reader. So I just
Mm-hmm.
happened to have gotten, I know that they have multiple people there.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, this second time there, I saw the same two people doing readings.
Mm-hmm.
So I just happened by luck to get the same person. He was definitely telling me the same thing this time as he was last time. So this is where the
You
pajama
have a
thing.
very consistent fortune.
Yes, I'm staying on brand with him. The If you wanted to know about the pajama thing from a couple of episodes before, why I'm sewing my own pajamas is because one of the recommendations is that I sleep in light colored clothing when I go to bed. And so, as we've discussed, a majority of my clothing is black or or color adjacent to, like, in the darker zone. So it's no surprise that a lot of my pajamas are the same. So I was like, all right, well, I do sew. I can get nice fabric that's comfortable in white. Yeah, so that's why I'm sewing the pajamas. He didn't tell me to sew them. It was just that I
It was
needed
not a home ec
it
project. What?
wasn't. No. That was not that itself was not a part of the reading. So the differences between the two were they they both kind of operated the same way. You can have a question in your mind, but they're going to pull the cards and then kind of tell you how they're interpreting it without fully knowing your question.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not really addressing the question, then you can speak up and get clarification. The person, so it was a guy and a girl. That was
Mm-hmm.
the two different readings. So the guy did kind of ask me what I wanted to know about. And I was like, I don't know. Like a lot of times, this is how I approach readings. I don't necessarily go in with an agenda,
Mm-hmm.
which my whole reason for going in, if you can tell me something that is relevant to my life that will resonate, this is not how I voice it to them, but this is
Mm-hmm.
like my mentality going in, then that's great. What I'm hoping to gain from the reading is anything that I'm not paying attention to that my guides have been like trying to yell at me about.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, pay attention. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to tell you this thing. And that's what I'm trying to find out. Like,
What
and
am I not seeing?
correct. And that's what I want to be brought up. So when somebody's asking me, like, what do you want to know about? Like, what part of your life do you want to know about? I'm like, I don't know. Like I said, I'll pick all the generic
You're the
things.
psychic.
Let's do love life. Let's do, yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
won't give a lot of information. And actually, while I'm on this part of going into it, what my MO is before I start or go into the reading, I will have a little conversation with my own guides.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I want you guys to be there and to be available and I want you to talk to them. And I would like it if you can say something to them, have them relay something to me that would resonate, that lets me know that you are coming through and that they actually have a connection with you. So, whatever that may be, I want you to do something like that. And I'll talk to my own guides about, yes, I want to hear something that if there's something that,
Purple giraffe.
yeah, that you're
Oh.
trying to tell me,
Mm-hmm.
please do that. Yeah, but I don't necessarily put on something like purple giraffe. Like I don't name the specific
Right.
thing. But so that's one of the things that I'll do ahead of time. But my other reason for getting it is, yes, I'd like to crowdsource. I like to check in. I like to see how other people do this as well in comparison because I happen to do it. The other part is that for me, I'm supporting somebody else
Mm-hmm.
financially. So even if I'm not getting anything that's necessarily helpful
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they're not actually very good at doing this. And, you can kind of get the vibe. You're like, you're just telling me all the things. Like, this is just what you tell people. There's not really
Mhm.
a connection there, and that's okay. This is how you make your living. And the agreement of me coming into this is that I'm helping to
Mhm.
support you in what it is that you're doing. And it just so happens that you are not as connected as I was hoping you would be.
Mhm.
Right? Like that, if that's the case.
Mhm.
But I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised.
Mhm.
Like because I end up finding that that can be really helpful. Sometimes you can just, it's more of the feeling of whether or not somebody's really kind of tapping in, like that feeling of resonance
Mhm.
with you with those readings. But in my experience, not just with tarot, because I've also had psychic readings, they're just purely psychic. I try not to necessarily hold on to what's being given to me because I have also experienced, because free will is the thing,
Mhm.
that you can sometimes by knowing the future, you can alter the future.
And that's actually the next part I was gonna bring up, which is
Yeah.
for so many different components in our cultures, people have been, fortune telling has been kind of dismissed
Mhm.
and or considered to be evil.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why, because if you put yourself in a position where you are treating someone else as an authority, and I think this is the same thing with going to the doctor's office, honestly,
Mhm.
and they say a word that has charge to it,
Yeah.
and you take that charge in,
Mhm.
and it begins to affect you.
Yeah.
So you go into a tarot reader who's like, I'm sorry, I just don't see anybody in your future. Like, you're going to be alone,
Mhm.
and it's your worst fear, and you hear that word and it goes into your body and it starts to create the chemical, conditions that make that be the thing that happens.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's very much the same thing when you're getting a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like, just be really careful of the words because they are in a way part of the illness or the medicine or however you want to look at it.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the things about fortune telling. And I think the other one is that fate versus destiny.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to remember the Jungian analyst who said, or it may have been Jung himself, who said, when people don't accept their fate, it happens to them and they consider it to be destiny. Or no, it's backwards. When people don't accept their destiny or reject it, and then when it bubbles up, then they call it their fate.
Mhm.
And the idea that you can't actually choose for yourself.
Mhm.
And I know a couple of people who get kind of offended at astrology and a little bit irritated with me when they'll tell me what's been going on. And I'm like, oh, that is so on. And then I recite the astrology
Yeah.
because they're completely in tune to it
Mhm.
without even knowing it. And they're kind of like,
Upset about it. Yeah.
those were my choices.
Like, they are your choices. But as
Absolutely.
we've discussed before, it's a little bit like choose your own adventure. And on that choosing of your own adventure, you're still going to have to
You're still
go.
on the game board.
Yeah, you're still on the game board. You're still going to hit certain hurdles or whatever, lessons or events. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of, you can come about it in a completely different way and still have the same end game. Like, that can still be a thing. You're just choosing on how you're getting there. That's all.
And so I think that maybe that understanding helps the concept of fortune telling
Mhm.
be a little bit more palatable, is nobody is trying to tell you what will or won't be. They're kind of giving you the next fork in the road decision.
Yeah. I have found when it comes to true, like, fortune telling events, somebody giving you like a true, just straight up psychic, clairvoyant
Mhm.
styled reading without any cards, without any scrying or any other kind of divination
Just staring at
tools.
you and
Yeah. And just like, this is coming to me. So I'm telling you that if I've heard the outcome of that reading and I'm like, yeah, I really want that to happen. Like, if I hold on really tight to it,
Mhm.
that I'm almost guaranteed to not have that work out that way.
Mm.
If I
So almost the concept of, if you, as you were trying to manifest something, say, I want that, then you are actually saying, I don't have that. And so you are
Mhm,
creating a loop where you continue to not have that.
correct.
Gotcha.
And then the path changes. And then something else completely different happens. But when I have just kind of not held on it so tightly, not even judging it as being like, I want that thing or don't want that thing, and be like, oh, that's interesting. We'll see how it works out. Like,
Mhm.
just have that frame of mind,
The observer.
as the observer, that it typically will happen that way.
Okay.
In my personal experience, have found very interesting. I'm like, if I'm so I can't hold on too tightly, which is sometimes why.
There's a song from, I think, the '70s called "Hold On Loosely," and it's
Mhm.
just running rampant in my head right now.
Yeah, but I think that idea is a thread that also runs through a lot of woo kind of topics, is not to really like hold on so tightly and to hold on loosely to ideas, wants, or whatever expectations, goals
But don't dictate to the universe how it's supposed to.
happen.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes I find more success with that, which is why I don't go in being like, I want you to tell me what's going to happen with this person in this situation. Like, I don't approach it that way, because I have not seen success in approaching it that way. Instead, that's why I come in with the most generic, like, tell me about my love life, is exactly so that I'm not holding on to some kind of expectation. Except the only time that I have gotten a reading from somebody, they're like, yeah, there's nobody. Yeah, you're not going to have anybody in your life. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
I'm just saying hard no to this.
I'm like, I'm not saying like in a year or even 2 years. You're like, yeah, no, just that was it. I've had my go and I'm done.
Somebody told you
Yeah,
that
pretty
to
much.
your
Yeah.
face? That's just bad PR as a fortune teller. Now, there is one woman who I've had a couple of not even astrological readings with, but she has a specialty and they are connected to that specialty.
Mhm.
And for me, I can have such a instinctive negative response.
Mhm.
And so she in particular is someone who I have a really hard time listening to in the moment.
Mhm.
Like she, to use the word, triggers me.
But it sounds like you've gone to her multiple times.
I did one of those things where you buy a package
Oh,
without fully understanding
without testing the
because
waters.
we'd had great conversations.
Ah,
But what I will say is that her information, as much as it initially gets my back up,
irked you?
is so useful
Okay.
because her methodology or
Mhm.
whatever
Yeah.
plants seeds in me really effectively.
Mhm.
And so there are things that I reflect on for years later,
Mhm.
processing and seeing a new light and understanding different ways. And I also feel like in some ways she's talking to the Suzanne who's 10 years in the future.
Mhm.
And so I can really feel that gap as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so just saying that, gentle listener, just because you don't agree with what somebody says
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they don't necessarily have a medicine that's for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what she is. She's like my toughest medicine.
Mhm.
And so, yes,
Yeah.
and even when I'm like, okay, I know this is how I respond. I don't know if it's her tone of I don't know what it is. I
Mhm.
think it's a little bit she tries to mother me, which is never a good strategy. But and probably, obviously shows my own wounds.
Mhm.
But even when I talk myself into it and I know what the triggers are,
Mhm.
still 10 minutes in and just but, take profuse notes and go back to them and process and
Mhm.
go take long showers to process and spend a lot of time just processing.
Yeah. Just take it in. Just let it sit. Just let it settle.
But I
Yeah.
think that's different, at least for me, between if there's an extreme response of, wow, that's really fantastic, or wow, that's really terrible,
Mhm.
it usually shows that there's something for me.
Yeah.
It's when it's like, meh,
Yeah.
this just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
You're
Like,
not talking to me or about me, or it just kind of rolls off and I don't remember I've done it.
yeah.
That those are the ones that it's like, okay, but if it pings me,
Yeah. My advice to somebody going and getting any kind of divination reading
in divination, we've used it interchangeably, but is to divine the future.
Yes.
So that concept of putting yourself in the 30,000-foot view to be able to see into the future, and that is what we call fortune
Yeah.
telling.
This can be intuition, clairvoyance or any kind of
Pick a Claire.
clair. This can be scrying, this can be tarot cards, this can be I've had shells thrown, I've had so many different styles of having my fortune told,
Mhm.
essentially. And in all of these, you can kind of feel sometime a connection, even if it's not like you're on board with everything that they're telling you, but
Mhm.
you can kind of say, "Oh, I don't know, it's a feeling. It's a feeling within it." But so just go you have to go in kind of with an open mind and let it all sit and land, and then just kind of walk away with it. And then from there, personally, I would kind of just hold on loosely to it and not be really having a tight grip onto any kind of expectation of what was told to you, especially if it's something that you would want to have happen.
And I would say, as in anything, like in your doctor's office, in any conversation you have with anybody who has authority over you or it can in some way predict your future,
Mhm,
whether that's in a woo way or in a very real way,
mhm.
is part of our autonomy is to decide which of those things we're going to receive.
Free will.
So, but I think one of the steps that we miss in woo all the time, and I know I've ranted on this 1,000 times, is you have to receive. So when you hear a tarot reading and it's amazing and you want all of that, you have to go through and say, yes, I receive the abundance. Yes, I receive the prince. Yes, I receive
Mhm,
the promotion. Yes, I receive. And no, I won't take my mother getting sick. And no, I won't take this. And no, I won't take that. Like it really is a buffet. And we have the options of what things we want to take. And so after you receive it, that's just putting the food on your tray.
mhm.
You still have to go and consume it and digest it and like
Yeah.
put that. So there's multiple steps to this. So just hearing the thing doesn't make the thing be true. So
Mhm.
this shouldn't be scary at all after that. But the other thing is that it's up to you. And
Yeah. Basically, if they're good and accurate with what they're telling you, what they're being good and accurate about is telling you how it looks at that moment.
mhm,
Things can always change from that point. I heard somebody earlier today, like, if you go out the driveway and take a right instead of a left, that, butterfly effect can
mhm.
change things. So keep that in mind as well, right? Nothing's necessarily
There's not good or
set.
bad.
Yeah, it's not necessarily set in stone. It may not happen exactly that way. You might alter it depending on your actions. So,
This is also one of the beneficial things of believing that the world is working for you.
yeah.
It's just like, I don't understand which way I need to, go. And it's like, either way, I'll get you there.
Mhm.
So, next letter, lady.
Okay. Letter. D.
I feel like we're stuck in the same part of the alphabet.
I know. We're taking care of all
The
the first.
first line of letters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
On all the woo.
A to Z.